Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about nerd news that has dropped over the past week since our last show last Tuesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer, burly underscore adopter for who knows how much longer on Twitter, and a couple of other things on a couple of other places, which I may wind up having to put out there if, in fact, Twitter becomes the untenable hellhole that it seems to be heading toward rapidly. Before we get into tonight's topics, we've got some pretty interesting things. We are going to ask you to take a look at our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber, which is up on your screen right now. We stream there live, we stream on Facebook Live, we stream YouTube Live every Tuesday, and we're just looking to build up our following on Twitch to be more like the following we have on the other two platforms, which is pretty impressive. If you have an account, we'd love to have you go to that URL and decide whether or not you want to subscribe, follow us there. So, that having been said, let's jump right into the very first topic. A lot of these are first looks and trailers. We end, of course, with a big bit of actual hard news. But let's jump right into this first look. The trailer, or first teaser, I guess they're calling it a trailer, for the spinoff of the Amazon series The Boys, GenV, dropped, and it looks pretty much like The Boys. Now, I chose this particular image because, of course, it's Clancy Brown. Apparently, he plays a very important role in the series. And that makes me a little bit more interested in watching the whole thing. Frankly, the description of the show itself, which was initially basically set in America's only college exclusively for young adult superheroes run by Vought International. The series explores the lives of hormonal competitive supes, as they put this is the way Deadline has written it up, their physical, sexual, and moral boundaries to the test, competing for the school's top ranking. It sounds like, let's go hard R school drama rom-com ecchi anime as a live-action superhero show. I mean, the description could just be really a bad encapsulation of what the real show is about, but that sounds so completely unappealing to me. I like watching The Boys because of what it does to the superhero team and superhero just general world building, and the way it turns it on its head. And explores some of the aspects of it that people don't ask about and don't want to talk about, all the way to their horribly logical conclusions. MTV's, whatever, I can't even think of the name of the show. A bunch of roommates living together, in this case in a college. 9021... oh, look at all the blood. Not really that interesting to me, but it's got Clancy Brown. And Clancy Brown can go a long way to making something interesting. It's not a guarantee. He was the voice of Red Hulk in Hulk Agents of Smash, and that cartoon was just awful. And so he couldn't even save it. So we'll have to see. Sometime in 2023, they don't say when, it's not in the trailer and it's not in this article. Of course, it's Prime Video because it's an Amazon product. And it has a whole bunch of people that now we know really nothing about in the cast, or at least I know nothing about in the cast, except that the lead character is played by Jazz Sinclair from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So again, maybe that elevates it a little bit, perhaps. But it's exciting. It's an exciting trailer. It's bloody as hell, and in keeping with The Boys. So there might be something there worth watching. I will give it a try for sure, but how long I'll give it, this may be a 3-episode because it's required before you can say it's garbage, and then I'm done. Or it may surprise me and turn out to be something really impressive that adds to the Boys universe, or at least the Amazon version of the Boys universe, in a way that I wasn't expecting. So, fingers crossed for that. Not going to hold my breath for it, but I will cross my fingers. All right, the second, not really trailer in this case, sort of just a first look that we got, is the first look at Shadow and Bone Season 2. We also got the information on when this is going to drop, March 16th. Now we're over, of course, on the Netflix side of things. This image is from Season 1. Honestly, the images that are in here are interesting, but, there's nothing that drastically changes anything that happened at the end of Season 1. We do get to see some new characters who are introduced, some of whom are apparently very, very popular within the series. Excuse me, I think I need some coffee. So if you want to check that out, EW, Entertainment Weekly, EW.com, has the first look and first description of some of the things that are going on. It doesn't give us much. It basically says, yep, where they ended at the end of Season 1, we're going to move over into, this part of their story now. One very interesting thing that's in this article is that trying to find it so I make sure I pronounce her name appropriately. Leigh Bardugo is going to be much less directly connected to the actual content and work of this second season. Now, she says it is because after, the way the first season was accepted, including the fact that, they sort of mashed together Shadow and Bone and the first book of a separate duology set in the same universe, Six of Crows. And people, at first were pretty skeptical that might work, but it turned out it did work, and everybody was pretty happy with the way it worked. So she apparently has said that she's now comfortable enough that she's going to mostly back away from it and let the writers and the showrunners do their thing. We know what happened the last time. Game of Thrones, final 2 seasons. But so far, these writers and showrunners have done a good job with Bardugo's direct assistance in Season 1. So, again, fingers crossed that Season 2 holds up to Season 1. I don't know if you guys saw our, back when we were doing it, our Full Fat Spoiler Chat show on Shadow and Bone Season 1. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought the world building was really innovative. I liked the fact that, yes, this is written as a sort of a YA young woman in a school to train powers. I mean, it could have been just as tropey as you can get in that kind of story, and it wasn't. And the elements where that kind of storytelling did come in were generally used for the advancement of a very interesting plot and eventual story elements. So, yeah, I think that both Bardugo in the books and the interpretation of that in the series did a really good job of not going all the way down that rabbit hole of, plucky young girl with strange powers goes to a school to learn about them trope. Even though that is part of the story. So we are now out into a much more adventure. Plucky young girl is fleeing from the Darkling, who basically tried to capture her powers and turn her into a slave. So potential for much more excitement without the sort of school aspect of it. And I think I'm going to like that even more than I liked Season 1. So we'll see. Obviously, again, we'll have to see how Bardugo's lower level of involvement is going to play out. I'm hoping it's going to be fine. I'm thinking it's going to be fine. But I'll find out on March 16th, like everybody else. Alrighty, our next story. That is, it's about Bryce Dallas Howard. That is, of course, the person on the right, just in case you were unsure about this. It's not about yet another casting for Chris Pratt, thank God. And the story is that Disney Plus has ordered a pilot for the series based on Witch Mountain. A series called Witch Mountain based on the Escape to Witch Mountain movie series. Bryce Dallas Howard is going to play the mother of one of the characters, one of the people with special powers. The story I'm a little unsure of, so they're calling this a reimagining, and the way they reimagine it is they just aged the kids up. So these are teenagers. The main teenager, Isabel Gravitt, plays Tia, Bryce Dallas Howard's daughter. That would be interesting. Maybe time travel's involved. You never know. I don't think so. Anyway, and Levi Miller plays Ben. Tia has the ability to sort of see visions, and Ben has the ability to somehow mind control people to get them to do what he wants. Maybe, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if you've not seen any of the movies, I kind of don't want to give away the sort of core mystery about why these powers exist, and what the story is of these kids and so on. And if they lean heavily into that, I'll be pretty copacetic with that change in aging up the characters, because again, they're it's in high school. Their best friends are school friends, and Ben is a troublemaker. His best friend is even more of a troublemaker. It's okay. All right, I get it. It's not quite the Scooby Gang from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but it's kind of leaning that way. So I'm not entirely sure whether or not this is going to be something I'm going to like. And they did only order a pilot. This hasn't been ordered entirely to series yet. So we'll have to see. Now, the people behind it is Travis Fickett and Terry Matalas, who did the series version of 12 Monkeys, which was pretty good. Luminous, welcome to the show. Did you miss the Wonder Woman 3 topic? It is our final topic. Generally, that's what the teaser image in our Facebook page or the YouTube thing is the last topic. Sometimes something really important will drop and it'll become the next to the last. But generally you can count that image shows us what's going to be the last topic. Unless it's an in memoriam, we get those right out of the way. But yes, you have not missed the Wonder Woman 3 thing. We're talking right now, in case you just really jumped in, about the fact that Disney Plus has ordered a pilot for a series called Witch Mountain, based on Escape to Witch Mountain, that will star among a bunch of alleged teenagers. I'm guessing they're all 18 or above, and Bryce Dallas Howard. So, I don't know when we get to see it, because again, they've just greenlit the pilot, which apparently they've been talking about since back in March. I don't know that we ever talked about this. This doesn't ring any bells to me. But we'll have to see what this turns out to be like. My guess is I don't recall ever seeing Disney Plus do a pilot and then a full series order. So they make the pilot, somebody at Disney looks at it, or a bunch of people at Disney look at it and go, oh yeah, here, give us a series, have it ready by X, and we'll have it on air. And then they put the whole series on air. Or on streaming. So I don't know that just because they're making a pilot, we'll get to see it before we get to see the rest of the series. But, maybe. I doubt it. That's generally not the way Disney, or frankly anybody these days that it's on a streaming service, does things. sometimes they don't go back. Like you could tell in the unfortunately canceled series Paper Girls from Prime Video, that the pilot was definitely a pilot because the writing got better, the acting got better, like from episode 1 to episode 2. So that may be the case here, or it may be that it's just, exactly what Disney wanted and says, go do more of that for an entire season. But we'll see if and when it finally comes out with trailers and the other sort of stuff. And of course, we'll keep paying attention to that. All right, moving on to our next topic. This is Idris Elba from the movie The Dark Tower. The news is about The Dark Tower. Luminous, I remember Witch Mountain. I don't think I've heard it mentioned since the 1970s. Well, Race to Witch Mountain was in the 2010s, and that was the one with The Rock, with Dwayne Johnson, where the meme comes from, where he's always reacting to something that, can't think of the actress's name, says, and he sort of turns in shock, and anyway. Well, we're talking about The Dark Tower. The news is that there is in the works a potential Dark Tower series coming to Amazon, a 5-season series if the show creators or the planned show creators have their way. And they probably are going to get their way because these two people are the two guys behind Intrepid Pictures, Mike Flanagan and Trevor Macy. And also part of the news is that they left, their 6-year deal with Netflix ran out, and they jumped ship over to Amazon. At Netflix, they made The Haunting, Midnight Mass, a whole bunch of things. They have a great track record for Netflix in doing sort of supernatural, nerdy content. More horror, but, there's definitely horror elements and supernatural elements, of course, to Stephen King's Dark Tower, in addition to sort of science fiction, science fantasy elements. But they also made 2 of the most recent Stephen King feature film adaptations, Gerald's Game back in 2017 and Dr. Sleep in 2019. And apparently because of that, Stephen King was so impressed that when they came to him with a request to get the rights, because apparently after the Dark Tower movie came out, King had the rights back, or he kept them all along, to the Dark Tower series, and King went, oh yeah, I like you guys, here you go. I'm sure money, or a contract was exchanged, of course, but, King definitely liked their work and, immediately said yes when they asked to license the Dark Tower. And this, by the way, this is an exclusive to Deadline, but it's not like inside sources say. This is an interview with these two guys. And they say straight up, what we want to do first at Amazon is do a 5-season Dark Tower adaptation followed by 2 feature films. Okay, I'm game. I have not yet seen the movie adaptation of The Dark Tower. I really like Idris Elba. I've heard pretty mixed things about it. And I really liked the first couple of books in the Dark Tower series. Once it became, Stephen King publishing Bible-sized books with him as a character in it again and again, I kind of went, all right, I think I'm done with this. Which is kind of too bad. I would have liked to have, kept at it. But they've even said they have the first shot, which would be an exact recreation visually of the first line of the first story of, about the gunslinger. And I'm okay with that. I think part of what I disliked about the later books is that he moved away from what was almost a mythical archetype story with mythical archetype characters into a much more Stephen King-y type, later Stephen King type story. And I didn't like that tonal shift. When it's a standalone book and it starts out that way, I'm absolutely fine with the later Stephen King works. I think some of them are really good. When you go from, that sort of almost fantasy world mythic feel to, yeah, let's bring everybody to the real world and have Stephen King be a character. Yeah, it lost me. So I'm excited about this. Obviously, these guys have an incredible track record, and I think they could pull it off. And they have the license. Amazon recruited them, and they want to do it. So I would put this high on the probably going to happen in a few years list. Yay. Count me in. I suppose I would have to watch the movie version before just to be sure. Anyway, moving on to our next topic. He says, as he's trying to remember where we're at here. Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is actual real big news. That is, of course, from Overwatch, which is a Blizzard Activision game. The news is that the FTC has sued to block the Microsoft $69 billion acquisition of Activision on anti-competitive grounds. And I got to say, I'm neutral on this. I don't think that being acquired by Microsoft is going to fix Activision's problems, but it might. Not being acquired by Microsoft would absolutely not change anything in Activision's behavior. So, if they don't buy it, Bobby Kotick is probably going to be CEO forever, or until he goes to prison. If Microsoft does buy Activision Blizzard, while nobody came right out and said it, the implication was that Kotick was probably not going to be long in the CEO chair. And I'd kind of like to see the guy that actually threatened to murder subordinates and swept years and years of horrific abuse under the rug gone. And Activision has made it absolutely 100% clear that they are not going to get rid of Bobby Kotick. He makes too much money for them. Once it's a unit of Microsoft, who knows? Phil Spencer could pick somebody and just go, okay, Bobby, you're out, you're in. Not urine, you're in. But also, Microsoft could very well say, hey, Bobby Kotick made a buttload of money for Activision, so we're going to leave him in there as the head of Blizzard now that we have Activision under our belt. Do I have an opinion on whether or not it's an anti-competitive purchase or an attempted purchase? Yeah, Microsoft has been buying up an awful lot of stuff, but, Disney? I mean, come on. If the U.S. government didn't go after, well, again, it was a different Department of Justice, different FTC, Federal Trade Commission, back then. But if they didn't go after Disney for essentially acquiring, the two other biggest nerd properties out there that weren't available, or that were available. Now, obviously, Warner Brothers isn't going to give up DC. Maybe. Then why do I care that they are going after this? It doesn't. It doesn't seem to be any different in general the way it would affect the market that they're in. Disney owns ABC, so it can put movies on television. It owns Hulu, so it can put things on streaming. It has its own streaming with Disney Plus now, so it can make series, as it's doing, and movies for Disney Plus. It doesn't need to make deals with other people. and it tries to keep everything in house. Aside from Percy Jackson, Disney's hardly picked up any outside intellectual property for anything that it makes. You know, it's all MCU stuff, or it's all Lucasfilm Star Wars stuff. Now, if they don't have to pay licensing rights, Disney is making more money, more profit off of every property they make. So if Disney is absolutely fine doing that, controlling their market to that extent, controlling distribution platforms for where the content that they make gets shown, why is that any different than Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard? They get to control a few more games that can become Xbox exclusives if they want to, and they've said they're not gonna. So, yeah, I'm neutral on whether or not it's anti-competitive enough to cheer the FTC on for suing. And frankly, I would kind of rather see Microsoft get their hands on them, just because nothing is going to change if somebody doesn't buy Activision Blizzard. Now, I'm not saying they will. There's all sorts of reasons why it wouldn't. But I guarantee it won't if somebody doesn't take over that company. So, yeah. We don't know how long this is going to roll out. Anti-competition, basically antitrust, but it's not. They like to use the term anti-competitive in these days. Lawsuits by the FTC are sometimes decades long. It took 2 decades to ultimately solve Microsoft's Internet Explorer suit. So, yeah, don't anticipate this thing happening. My guess is, having brought the suit, is, in the eyes of the FCC, enough to get Microsoft to say, hey, we're not going to sit here for 10 years and drag this sucker out to see whether or not we get to buy it. They're either going to try to get it to court real quickly, or they're going to abandon the acquisition. We'll have to see which way it goes. All right. Moving on to our next to the last. This was a very late edition because the trailer for this just dropped late afternoon. The official trailer, the last thing apparently was a teaser. So Sony is calling this the official trailer for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse dropped, and it looks even better. We get to see even more of what the story looks like in this trailer than we did in the teaser. This is from the teaser because, once again, the trailer doesn't show us a lot of new stuff, and some of the things it does I don't want to put up here. And I know Luminous doesn't like to have certain things spoiled, so I'm not going to spoil any, or much, I should say, of anything that hasn't already been told about it or in that first teaser. We know that Oscar Isaac plays Spider-Man 2099. That's done. We know that coming back are, of course, I'm gonna definitely get their names wrong if they're not up here, and they're not. Darn it. The actors for Miles Morales, for Gwen Stacy, for Peter B. Parker, they're all coming back. We know that Spider-Punk is going to be a character, and it's going to be voiced by Daniel Kaluuya. So I'm assuming that's a fairly important character. I don't think you're going to have him, Daniel Kaluuya, come in and just, have a quick cameo. We do get to see Spider-Woman, whatever version of Spider-Woman this is. It's not the the Spider-Woman that we're familiar with. Voiced by Issa Rae, and it's wicked cool character design. And then already on Twitter and other social media, I've seen people like zooming in. There's a scene where, in whatever this new way of getting from universe to universe is, there's an awful lot of spider people, and people have already started zooming in and clipping out. And so I won't say there's a lot of characters that you will remember and that you might remember. I mean, it's like, oh, was that or that? What and which Into the Spider-Verse, Across which Spider-Verse comic book was that? Which alternate? I will just have to put this out there because I was so glad that I saw that. Apparently, at least in the background, you get to see MJ, from the in her Spider Mom is what everybody calls it outfit, from was it Renewed Vows, something like that. That particular Spider-Man story arc, and that's just one of what looks to be like hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of spider characters in the background, or maybe some of them even coming more into the story. But it's really cool if you want to get a sense of what the Across the Spider-Verse is going to look like and be like. Check it out. If, like Luminous, you really don't like having hardly anything spoiled, I don't know that there's anything that's a big spoiler in this teaser, other than you get to see some of those many Easter eggs of it's and that's that one, and cool. But yeah, check it out, or wait until June 2nd, which is when it finally hits theaters. As they make very clear, in theaters only until it lands somebody's streaming deal. But it looks really cool. I definitely like it. All right. Last big topic, the big one. This is, of course, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman from the last Wonder Woman movie made by Patty Jenkins, Wonder Woman 1984. And the possible news is, the reported news is that Wonder Woman 3 by Patty Jenkins will not be going forward at the new DC studios under the control of James Gunn and Peter Safran. That was reported by The Hollywood Reporter. Deadline picked it up and confirmed it according to their inside sources independently. Now, it's really interesting that the day before the Hollywood Reporter article came out, Gal Gadot put out onto her Twitter, quote, "A few years ago, it was announced that I was going to play Wonder Woman. I've been so grateful for the opportunity to play such an incredible, iconic character, and more than anything, I'm grateful for you, the fans. Can't wait to share her next chapter with you." I put the emphasis on her. Pardon me. Luminous, do we know much about the content of Wonder Woman 3? I saw one gossip headline that implied it was not a good story. So, the Hollywood Reporter reported that the reason that movie as it was planned is not going forward is that Gunn and Safran did not like the story treatment that Patty Jenkins submitted to them. The website The Wrap then went on and had its own unverified, unnamed internal sources say that it was Jenkins who walked away from the project because she didn't want to redo the story. She wanted to do her story treatment. James Gunn has gone on to say in his own posts on Twitter and other social media, so as for the story yesterday in the Hollywood Reporter, some of it is true, some of it is half true, some of it is not true, and some of it we haven't decided yet whether it's true or not. And then he goes on saying, although this first month at DC has been fruitful, building the next 10 years of story takes time, and we're still beginning. He said they knew that we're coming into what he calls a fractious environment, both in the stories being told and in the audience itself. That's really telling. So he's made it pretty clear that he wants, and Warner Brothers Discovery hired him to essentially be Kevin Feige. Make all DC, and as DC Studios, he and Safran are in control of movies, animated, and live action television. So to make all those things connect together, like Marvel. Using the phrase coming into a fractious environment, both in the stories being told, really says that he knows that everything has been, well, fractured. That there was no cohesive, overarching story that connected all of these things. That, yes, splitting it up like that made the Batman a big success, made Joker a huge success. I mean, a massive moneymaker for Warner Brothers. But, you know, that's not what Warner Brothers wants, and apparently that's not what Gunn agreed to. It looks like he has an idea for a large story. Darkseid or whatever. Or Kingdom Come, because he has tweeted an awful lot of things, images from the Mark Waid, Alex Ross miniseries Kingdom Come. Or some sort of combination of that. He's also tweeted pictures of Lobo, which has led people to speculate, and this is wild speculation that I've read, that everybody is going to be recast, that Momoa is going to be out as Aquaman so that he can be Lobo. And he looks like Lobo. I mean, he's, you know, if you're unfamiliar with the character, Lobo is a, you know, intergalactic bounty hunter, super ultra violent, really got his fame rolling with a fantastic Simon Bisley, I think it must have been a Vertigo title because it was so insanely violent. Lobo versus Santa Claus, long before the South Park Jesus versus Santa that sort of started South Park. But that is absolutely wild and rampant speculation. Now, my take on it is that I don't think that he's going to recast an actor from one role to take over another role within the DC, you know, extended universe. Let's call it that now. Because it doesn't make any sense. Aquaman made a lot of money. I didn't like it, but it made a lot of money. Aquaman 2, The Lost Kingdom, or whatever it's called, looks like it's going to make a lot of money. People love Momoa. They love him in this role. And more importantly, he and Gunn are friends. And this is a spoiler for a post-credit at the very end of Peacemaker. I'm sorry, folks, if you haven't seen Peacemaker. This has nothing to do with the series. It's literally just an excuse for people to come in and say dirty jokes. But at the very, very, very end of Peacemaker, there's a sort of mid-credit scene in which Ezra Miller's Flash and Jason Momoa's Aquaman show up to kind of explain why the Justice League wasn't around helping out when, you know, this is a world-ending thing that could have happened in Peacemaker. But again, mostly it's just, you know, to make jokes. And so Gunn, long before Zaslav and Discovery took over Warner Brothers, long before he was made head of DC Studios with Safran, you know, he asked these two guys who are part of the Snyderverse Justice League to come in and do this basically comedy bit at the end of his series. And they were like, oh yeah, come on, let's do it. And I think I mentioned this in talking about the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer last week. That was filmed on the set of Guardians of the Galaxy because Gunn had already moved on from Peacemaker and was filming Guardians of the Galaxy when he had that idea. Luminous, one day I hope to see something like Justice League Endgame, and I want the Wonder Twins in it. I don't see that coming back. Actually, with James Gunn, who knows? That could come back. But you remember, there was supposed to be a movie, or an HBO Max movie. So a non-cinematic release. That was supposed to star Archie from Riverdale, KJ Apa. So that got nixed quite a while ago. During the whole super chaotic shakeup once Discovery actually acquired Warner Brothers. So for that reason, I don't see them recasting it. I also don't see them recasting Gal Gadot, and I don't see any reason why you would want to recast Henry Cavill. You know, a lot of people have said, oh, that's all up in the air now because, Black Adam was not a James Gunn property, and the fact that he came in at the end, might sort of put Gunn on the hook for doing. Why would you get rid of Henry Cavill? For whatever is wrong with any of the movies he's been in as Superman, it's not him as Superman. He's really good as Superman. So now, who knows? It could be money. We've clearly been shown that Warner Brothers Discovery is very tight-fisted. So, yeah. All of this is to say, this is all speculation, but the things that have been allegedly confirmed by both the Hollywood Reporter's inside sources and Deadline's inside sources, separate sources, is that Wonder Woman 3 as a Patty Jenkins vehicle is dead in the water. After that, who knows? Now, Gunn is supposed to be making his presentation to the Warner Brothers Discovery, whatever team he has to make these presentations to, this week, as to what his vision is for, the DC properties going forward. So we might see an official statement about that. We probably will see a lot of people reporting leaks from inside. If it comes from the Hollywood Reporter, from Deadline, from places like that, Variety, you can take it with a less of a grain of salt than if it comes from some of those garbage places like We Got This Covered and so on. Don't read into anything that they report. But ideally, we'll get to see some information about what he has in mind. If not the end of this week, then probably within a few weeks. I think that would be a very interesting sort of Christmas present to give out to the DC fans. On the Friday the 23rd or something, James Gunn puts out a video, a YouTube video or something on the official Warner Brothers Discovery channel, saying, or maybe DC Studios has its own channel now, saying, hey, I want to tell you about what we have in mind, and lay some stuff out. Frankly, I think they would hold it for any sort of big reveal thing. I don't think they could hold it all the way until something like San Diego Comic-Con. It wouldn't last. But Warner Brothers might have a big quarterly, report that they could time this into coming up. Maybe in early January for their, end of 2022, or in April for their end of Q1 2023. Who knows? I guess we'll see it earlier rather than later. And if, based on what I'm trying to read, or I think I'm reading between the lines, maybe it's what I'm trying to read between the lines, in James Gunn's tweets, he wants it to be earlier. He wants people to get a sense of where he's going with this as soon as he can. So I would say before the end of the month, we'll see something. But that's it, folks. That's the last topic. Thank you, Luminous, for joining me in the chat. Thank you, anybody else who is going to comment on this after the fact, when it actually goes up on the regular YouTube rotation. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Before we go, I will once again give out my last promo here, and that is for you to, if you are of a mind to, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Consider being a patron We'd love to have you. We'd love to have your support, of course. We just have 3 tiers. $2 is the lowest tier, and we use it to go to upcoming cons, to get more content to put on YouTube, to put on the website, and so on. On the website, the most recent thing I've posted is my TV and streaming top 10 series of 2022. So go check that out. I can tell you Foundation is not on it. And later on this week, I will have my top anime series of 2022, top 10. Cons are coming up. I think our next one is, as I've said, Aresia in January. Then, of course, we've got a team at Katsucon. Numbers of flu, of RSV, and, of course, of COVID are spiking. I said this last week. It's just getting worse. Read the articles. Read the news. The CDC is about to, if they haven't already, reinstitute their mask recommendation policy, which they shouldn't have dropped in the first place. But if you're going out in public, if you're shopping for holiday gifts, if you are going to holiday parties, wear a mask. Don't put yourself at risk. Don't put other people at risk. The fact that I, again, knock wood, seem to have completely dodged a cold, flu, or COVID bullet at my older brother's memorial service last weekend. That's last weekend. Is a miracle. Or at least, hopefully, I've completely dodged it. It's been, 4 days now. Actually, it was 2 weekends ago. So it's been more than a week. And I actually thought I was going to catch one of those 3. And thank God I didn't. Because I didn't wear a mask. Because I thought it was disrespectful to his friends. I probably would have preferred wearing a mask through that whole event. And in any event coming up, I am absolutely going to, and I recommend that you do the same. It's just the smart thing to do. Anyway, having said that, folks, we will see you at an upcoming con. We will see you at our next show. In the meantime, please be safe out there. Stay warm. That second entirely across the country storm that's hitting, please be safe through that. The snow up in the northern Midwest, the probably tornadoes in the southern plain states, flooding rains and so on. As it continues to move east, who knows what's going to happen with it. Please be safe. This little spit of snow we got in New England over this past weekend, multiple multi-car accidents and some deaths for a dusting. So be careful out there, folks. We'll see you